Do you want me to do my clap thing?
Go.
We good?
This is the Luca Health Podcast, the show that goes beyond sport to understand the people behind the performances.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Nick Greenhalgh, co-founder and CEO of concussion management startup Luca Health, and today I'm delighted to welcome an old friend. Tom Mitchell is many things: a Bristol University rugby star, an Oxford Blue, an all-conquering GB Sevens captain, as well as an Olympic medalist. On top of that, he's a writer, a broadcaster, a part-time philosopher, a husband, a father, a sometimes celebrant, and a people developer. Yes, he's one of those annoyingly talented people and good-looking to boot. Excited to get into Tom's journey, hear his reflections on where he finds himself today, and dive into his future plans. This is a must listen for any with aspirations of playing pro sport, but not currently on a pathway, as well as those interested in mindset and learning about holistic growth and development. Welcome, Mitch. Awesome to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just going to have to tone down the blushing. That is like, I couldn't have written a better intro, even if I was trying to big myself up. So wonderful. In fact, you've just probably captured a few things about myself which I needed reminding of, which is nice. Not my achievements.
Likewise.
Stuff, but just about
Celebrant.
The celebrant. That's one of the highlights, actually. That was such a privilege, marrying two of my friends. Lovely moment amongst all the other ones.
Well, you are a very interesting bloke. Somewhat of a polymath, I think would be the word.
It keeps coming.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. Keep going.
No, we will get into everything you've done in due course, but we have a quick fire round.
Yeah, okay.
Which is customary on the Luca Health podcast.
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Yeah, go for it.
Perfect. All right, Bristol Red or Oxford Blue?
I think he's going to rub someone up the wrong way. Bristol Red.
Don't mean to make this not a quick fire round, but I didn't know what a Bristol Red was until Friday. It's actually a thing, isn't it?
It's actually a thing, yeah.
Are you a Bristol Red?
Yeah, so you can get awarded a red for special services to sport, to university, basically, or high achievement. And I got a red.
Congrats.
Do you know what's funny?
Much rarer than an Oxford Blue, I hear.
Perhaps, yeah. Numbers-wise, I wouldn't like to go into the data on it. Both great achievements for different reasons for me, like both amazing things I'm very grateful for. Recently commentated on the Bristol University Sevens team, and I think it's fresh in my mind, my allegiance and my attachment to Bristol. So
yeah, you just offended some ex-teammates, but that's fine. All right, let's get back to quick fire. That's my bad. All right, childhood hero.
Johnny Wilkinson.
Fair. Best opponent you played against?
Jerry Tuai, Fijian Sevens captain.
Sick.
Double gold Olympian.
Yeah. You look like a musician. Favourite song or artist?
Favourite song and possible favourite artist, Bob Marley.
Yeah, can't argue with that. All right, highlight of your playing career.
This is, again, borderline impossible, Nick, that you've thrown this at me. Highlight would probably be Olympics 2016.
Silver medal.
It just felt on top of the world. It was an amazing story of coming together, odds against us in a lot of ways, and just such a fun journey, like true, pure adventure.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, Celestial Sevens or the Hong Kong Sevens?
I'm going to say Celestial Sevens because it's all about the future, legacy, the up-and-comers, and now I've hung up the boots. It's all about the next gen. Although Hong Kong Sevens, what a place.
Absolutely. And university sports, where you got your break.
Yeah.
And that's what it is, right? For those that don't know what the Celestial Sevens is, we should give a plug for a tournament that's happening in 360 days' time.
Yeah, get it in the calendars. No, genuinely, it's actually something I'm really passionate about. I mean, we mentioned my experiences at uni. We're completely, by the way, destroying the quickfire round here. I'm aware.
No, this is the last question of the quickfire round, so we can tuck into this one.
Yeah. University sports, student rugby especially, is a real passion. I think it was somewhere where I grew up so much, both in terms of my playing ability, but also just my personality, my approach to the game. Learned a bit about professionalism. And I think it's just such an untapped resource. There's an amazing level of skills going on at the top level of the university game. And now it is good because a lot of these clubs in the Premiership are noticing that, have now built relationships with universities, and we're seeing the fruits of that. I would love, and hopefully I think this season we'll see some more of those players coming into the sevens. We'll see. That's always been when I was playing anyway, it was a real source of talent for us.
Yeah.
A lot of boys came for that because it gives you an opportunity to develop your rugby while you're growing as a human being. You come into the professional game a little bit older, a little bit wiser.
And potentially not broken from having been in an academy for like 3 years, not really played much rugby.
Yeah, not broken by it physically, and also probably not mentally broken, which you do see happen on occasion where boys and girls don't get the love. They're not given the opportunities to just play the game. And sometimes the best way of improving is by doing it and just playing and getting minutes under your belt. And if you're training and holding bags and not necessarily getting the minutes on the match day, it's probably not that conducive to your development.
Yeah, you start to grow to resent it. I think that's very fair. Amazing. Well, I feel like we know you now. I'm keen to get into the university rugby a little bit because you've gone on and had like a wonderful career playing sevens particularly. But pro sport wasn't necessarily always on the cards for you, right? You weren't in an academy. You sort of got your break during your playing days at Bristol. Why don't you tell us sort of like go into that journey a little bit, like how you ended up having the career you did from that start, I guess? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, at school playing, the dream was to be a professional rugby player. I was always on the small side. There was people who said, "Oh, you're probably not built for it, not cut out for it." I never really thought there was like a chip on my shoulder or anything. I was trying to prove anything to anyone, but that dream still lived somewhere within me, but didn't get a look in really. I mean, I played in the Sussex B team, so like County B was like the highest level I'd reached at that age. Yeah, pretty much.
At 18s?
No, this was at like under 14, under 15s, and then didn't even play any county above that. Played at school. We had a couple of decent years in my sixth form years, but no representative stuff. Like it just wasn't a thing for me. Went to uni. Basically, like chose university based on academics. It was a course I wanted to do. Did English and philosophy at Bristol, and I didn't do any research into the rugby club. And on reflection, that was a ludicrous thing because I was always going to play rugby. Really passionate about it. I'd done a year out in Australia between school and uni, and I'd played a bit of rugby out there. Again, talking of formative rugby experiences, that was an amazing one because...
Was that grade rugby?
Yeah, so I played, it was like, I don't even know what the league's called, it's like Sydney First Division, so it's below the level of like Ramwick and that lot. And it was quite casual, but it was amazing. Because we had a really talented group of Colts. So I played in the Colts, and then played a bit of men's rugby. So I played for like the thirds, then I'd have like half of the twos, and then sit on the bench for the ones, all in the same day, because that's the way it runs over there. And I mean, there was a massive social side of it as well, which took some getting used to, but it was brilliant fun. Nearly didn't survive that. I survived the rugby, all right. It was the social side that was tough. And that, uni, I got lucky that Bristol was a good team and had a really good program. In the years I was there in particular, we had a really good intake across a few years of talented players, some who were playing professionally at the time as well, alongside their uni studies. And so we had a competitive side, allowed me to push on a little bit. And then second year and third year of uni, played for Indian students. That was my first taste of sort of being recognised a bit. And
in what position?
Centre. Yeah, so I was a bit of, I mean, it's the classic sevens story, is that if you sort of play all across the back line, chances are you're going to end up in sevens because you're sort of jack of all trades a little bit. And I was fortunate as well that during my time there I got exposed to some amazing sevens experiences. So the end of my first year at Bristol, had a last minute invitation to go and play sevens in Kenya for the uni, because it was a trip they did every year. And I'd sort of flown under the radar a little bit on my first year. Had an amazing time playing freshers, played a bit in the twos, eventually broke into the first team by the end of the year. But it's the kind of thing you kind of laugh about now because like it could have been very different. But I was very competitive still deep down, and I was enjoying all areas of uni life, but there was definitely a fire still burning, whether I knew it or not. And I honestly look back with so much gratitude for the twists and turns that allowed me to have the career I had off the back of my student experiences.
Yeah.
So that trip to Kenya, I was due to do work experience at a magazine because it was the summer holidays. And I got asked on the Saturday to go to Kenya on the Monday.
Wow.
On the Monday evening, I think. And I didn't want to mug off the magazine company that had given me work experience. So I got the train to London on the Monday morning, rocked up at the office, said, "Oh, great, you're here for the work experience." I was like, "Yeah, but I'm just telling you, I'm not actually coming in. I've just come to tell you I'm not coming." Got the train home, went to the airport, flew to Kenya, and opted for that week over a week of experience in journalism, which was one of my planned out careers.
Was that? I mean, that doesn't surprise me based on what Mike Gamble told me about that Kenya trip. So Mike's a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
I used to work with him in a previous
Worries
life.
me, by the way, that you've gone to him for stories, because he could have come out with all sorts.
Well, you were his celebrant, right? You married him.
Yeah, which is very trusting.
I hear you were, some poor behaviour at his wedding, though.
I wasn't the worst, I'll tell you that.
But anyway, he was talking. He didn't want to throw you under the bus, but he did say some very nice things about you. And one being, so Mike went on that Kenyan trip, right?
Yeah.
And that invitational sevens tournament in Nairobi. And you guys did quite well, I hear. Like, there were some serious teams out there. They're like some junior box, like NZ provincial teams, Kenyan national team.
Yeah. We actually had a good team because we used to basically take some of the best players from Bristol Uni and then get a few ringers in from English students. So we were a student team. But yeah, we really did a good job. I think everyone was there, very fit, but mostly just being fueled off this amazing opportunity to go to another country, and all in the name of rugby. We were very well looked after by everyone. We did okay. Some of the best memories of my life, by the way.
Really?
And I've played in some amazing tournaments around the world, obviously, been fortunate to do so. But those Kenya tournaments, I went twice while I was at university. And they were some of the best times. And the crowd was amazing, the vibrant atmosphere, I will never forget it. And it was very rough and ready. It was like great experience in terms of learning to pack your own parachute and you've got to sort yourself out because no one's really looking after you. I remember there was like 2 portaloos for the whole stadium, players and fans included, which you can imagine they weren't in a great state. And things like that, like going, like it just, you have to just suck it up and crack on.
Those are the experiences that last in the memory, aren't they? I remember going on a Richmond tour to South Africa, and we played, I don't know if you know, sort of like the teams in Cape Town, we played Villagers, got a really cool stadium that surrounds the pitch, but like an amateur team. And then the second game we played on that tour, I mean, the tour is effectively a 12-day stag do. With a couple of rugby matches to justify you taking 2 weeks off work. But the second game was against one of the local township sides, and it was played 6, 7 p.m. at night, like the sun's setting. It's like a proper African scene. There's potholes in the pitch. There's no real floodlights. Like they park the cars, all around the pitch, shine the lights on from the cars to sort of illuminate the pitch. And those are the experiences that are incredible. And that tournament. So you got to the semis, lost? Yeah,
lost in the semis. Yeah, we actually give one of our other mates a lot of grief about that because we basically say he lost us the game. Okay. Obviously not true. It's a team sport.
But then Mike was saying that after that, like you guys outperformed perhaps expectations, and then how many people were watching? Is it quite a big tournament?
It felt like a big tournament. Yeah, the crowd's absolutely rocking, fueled mostly by Tusker beer.
Yeah, fine. Don't know Tusker beer, but Mike was saying that that him and the rest of the boys, apart from you, were sort of doing a lap of honour after going out in the semis to the Kenyan national team that won it, and sort of taking the applause of the locals and all the rest of it. And knowing Gamble, I can well imagine that. But he was saying that you weren't with them. You were back, in the, I don't know, back in the stadium or whatever, back in the changing rooms, and you'd just given your boots and a load of kit to one of the cleaners, which apparently sums you up as a bloke. So there we go.
Yeah, it's nice
to make you blush one final time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. That makes me sound very responsible for how I behaved most of the time back then. But I think it was probably a rare moment, but a moment where I was channeling. As I said, a lot of it has been fueled by the gratitude for the opportunities that have come my way, and sometimes, I suppose, you try and reflect that gratitude back out in various ways. That must have been one of them. But when you're met with a contrast of life situation, I suppose, and circumstance, it reinforces that gratitude, and I guess drives, certainly for me anyway, drives me to want to do better, do good things, which is probably, I think, something that fuels me in general in life. Is the more I'm met with gratitude for my circumstances, and I've got no reason not to be, because I'm a very blessed life up to this point. So the more I recognise that, I think the better person I am. I think when I lose sight of that, I'm just not my best self, I suppose.
But gratitude, I mean, I believe in sort of being grateful for things, and I gratitude journal every night. I sound like a classic startup founder, but I do. And it makes an enormous difference, because then you start to spot or identify those tiny things in the day that do actually put a smile on your face. And then if you've got a smile on your face more often than you don't, I think you're living a pretty happy life. So I'm a huge believer in this stuff. But was I like that at the age of 20? No.
To be clear, neither was I all the time.
Fine.
But I like the bias angle that Mike's been able to shine on that. No, I mean...
Well, he's provided a story that sums you up as a bloke. Okay, so then university rugby, well, I guess the time in Australia, pretty formative.
Yeah,
in terms of
for sure.
Playing with some older blokes, it sounds like, some talented blokes, and probably playing a slightly different style of rugby.
Yeah, and it felt very freeing as a way of playing where I was able to express myself. I think, like, physically I was a bit of a late bloomer at school, so I probably didn't feel, kind of grow into much of an athlete, I suppose, in inverted commas, until I was maybe upper sixth, and I started getting a bit quicker and actually had enough strength to kind of do something. And I was never big, still not, obviously. But I think by the time I got out to Australia, I was capable, and that coupled with, there was no shame, like no one was telling me how to play the game. It was literally like, come and have a run around. Felt very welcomed into a community, a group of people, obviously halfway around the world. So that comes with a lot of force and packs a punch in terms of that feeling. So yeah, it was an amazing experience just to go and play, and then tried to carry that throughout most of my career, actually. I don't want to fast forward too far, but the only pitfalls, I think, when you become professional is that you lose sight of that.
Yeah.
And you lose that ability to just go and play.
Well, I guess you were free then, right? There wasn't too much consequence, and you were sort of...
Zero, yeah.
Well, you weren't out there playing rugby, were you? You were working.
No, I was working
at school.
Yeah.
So then that's just a bonus activity you're doing on a Saturday and making some mates and having some schooners afterwards.
Oh yeah, too many.
So then how did you go from, the Kenyan experience, playing international sevens tournament as a fresher to then captaining GB for 10 years and racking up 1,500 odd points and all the accolades that you did, that you can tell us about if you want.
How did it happen? I mean, definitely a beneficiary circumstance. So I came out of university, and it was my Easter holidays, just before my finals at Bristol.
Yeah.
Got a phone call, invited to go in and train with England Sevens. I was like, whoa. In fact, it was a voicemail, which I nearly didn't...
So is that Ben Ryan?
Ben Ryan. Nearly didn't return it, because I thought it was a joke. True story. Like, honestly, nearly never rang him back.
Which mate is good at impressions?
Well, 100%. That was my... Because I, as you said, I had no real sense of being on the radar. I mean, played England student stuff, but not much kind of love from the clubs and things like that, compared to some other people that I'd seen. And obviously you compare yourself to other people, don't you? You think, but they've been in an academy since they were 15. They must be the ones who are going to be successful and do this as a career. I better think about what else I'm going to do. Hence the work experience at the magazine, things like that. So I went in and I trained with England Sevens, and I remember driving home, because it was Easter holiday, so I drove back to my mum and dad's house down in Sussex. I remember driving home feeling so satisfied, because I'd done 3 days training camp with England Sevens, and I thought to myself, if I never get invited back, like, how good that I've done that. And in some ways I look back and think, what a limiting belief. Like, you should have been like, come on, Tom, let's get that again. Let's go hungry for more. But I think...
No, but where you were coming from, right?
Where I was coming from, with no expectation. And I think that no expectation served me pretty well. And also having the perspective that there were other things in life as well served me. So because I was a little bit older, I'd had some life experiences. I had a lot of mates that weren't involved in rugby, that were doing other stuff. I'd already thought about what else I might do in life in terms of a job, career. So I was able to kind of enjoy the opportunities that came along through the rugby without loads of stress and expectation. I also didn't have other people putting that on me. So my parents never laid it on thick. On reflection, they must have been really excited about the opportunities that I was getting, but never tried to make it heavy for me or lay any expectation on. So did that first experience with England, played the European series that summer. I'd already signed on to a postgrad at Oxford because I basically wanted to delay my career, getting a job because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Spoken to the rugby club at Oxford. They were really helpful, brilliant. It helped me get in there.
Who's that, JC?
JC was brilliant. Yeah, amazing
Fez.
guy. Yeah, Fez, what a legend of the club. Stepped out of it now. Won't be the same.
Tim
without
Stevens, for those not familiar.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Great person, dedicated so much to it. Everyone there really helped. And so what I did the varsity campaign. And what Ben Ryan had said in the summer was like, give us a call when you've done with the varsity. He was very understanding. He was like, dedicate your entire self to that journey with Oxford. Soak it all up, make the most of it. So I did. And then I literally was like, I suppose I should call Ben now. This was the end of December, mid-December, maybe just before Christmas. So I called him out of the blue. In fact, I tell you what, I didn't. Rusty got in touch. Obviously, been on the pod before. And he said, you should probably call Ben. Because I was quite shy and retiring. I wasn't one to really promote myself. I was like, surely he's not going to pick up if I call him. He's the England Sevens coach. Anyway, Rusty was like, you should probably get back in touch. So I did, and I went to training the following week. I think it was the end of December. Hadn't been the healthiest Christmas for me, to be honest. After the back of the varsity, which obviously was quite a boozy time. Yeah, we had a little week. We had a long weekend in Copenhagen, actually.
Okay, that's nice.
Probably too sophisticated.
That's quite cultured.
Well, it was too sophisticated for the type of behaviour that we were exhibiting at that moment.
You go to Noma, the world's best restaurant. It was in Copenhagen. It's shut now.
It was. I don't remember a lot of that weekend, if I'm honest.
No, fair. I suspect, having been on a week of sin, I suspect you did not go to Noma.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, got in touch, went to training, and ended up getting picked for the next tournament in the season, which was the Wellington Sevens in January 2012. Complete surprise. Benefited again. Circumstance. There was a couple of injuries. Jumped in. Basically, was Dan Norton's understudy, so I was coming on the wing, which I'd never did after that first tournament. But when Norts had basically won the game or had enough, he came off. I did a couple of minutes at the end of the game, and that was my introduction. And I played the rest of the season whilst completing my course. I did 6 tournaments, which on reflection now, most people don't get the chance to come in and play that consistently.
I was going to say.
Get that many minutes off the bat. And a lot of it was lucky. There was, again, I say injuries, so I played a lot of minutes at centre, then at 10 a little bit, and then got offered a full-time contract at the end of that summer. So
that's a pretty mega year then. So you doing your Masters at Oxford, what was that in?
I did a postgraduate certificate, actually, just to come completely
so you wouldn't be allowed to play in the varsity match
Not
these
anymore.
days?
Not anymore, no. I snuck in through the side
rowers.
doors.
Yeah, okay, fine.
So I did historical studies. So I did English and philosophy as my undergrad, then a postgrad in historical studies, and then on reflection was like, maybe I should have done something a little bit more applicable to the working world. But really, really interesting. Loved it. Gave me opportunities to do other things.
You might not have had a sevens career.
Well, exactly, because if I'd done a more demanding course as well, and make no bones about it, my course was a lot less demanding than some other ones that people were doing. It gave me the opportunity to basically start full-time with England. And we were a camp-based model, but we were essentially training full-time, so it allowed me to really dedicate that to myself to that and make the most of it, importantly. Really, I was just absolutely flying by the seat of my pants. You know, I couldn't believe the experiences I was having. I was getting paid as well. Remember, the first time I got paid.
How does that work? You get paid by tournament. You get paid to travel to New Zealand as a student to go and represent your country.
I mean, can you imagine?
That's pretty mega.
I was just
as what, a
22-year-old,
23-year-old or something.
Yeah, I was 22 at the time. And I was struggling to. I never really caught up with the experiences I was having because they were just coming thick and fast, and you're just trying to. I remember I was just trying to not mess up for some of it, just fit in, try and understand what the standard was. But all the way through that, the game time, I was actually really able to enjoy it, I think, because one of the things I used to tell myself before every game was like, this might be the last game you ever play, so you might as well enjoy it. And then for some people, that was quite an extreme and almost morbid thought to have pre-game, but it was a reality that helped ground me and bring me back to the present moment, I suppose, if you're looking at it in terms of psychological terms, and it allowed me to get the best out of myself, I think, in those quite nerve-wracking first few tournaments.
It's amazing that you managed to still remain sort of like loose and just release and like welcome the opportunity rather than when I was playing like professionally, I was just scared, to be honest. I was just like, if you're on the bench for the first team, kind of scared to get that call up to come on because you don't want to miss that tackle. And I don't know, maybe that's just the different journeys that we went on to get to those different experiences. I was always in an academy and sort of that I probably placed a lot of expectation on myself, and then it almost became, I need to control this and I need to like hold on to the steering wheel as tight as I possibly can. And I think like anyone that's been alive enough years on the planet knows that like that invariably leads to poor outcomes, right? Whereas when you can just release and let go and do things instinctively, it typically leads to a better, higher level of performance, let's say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've always been fortunate that rugby has allowed me that space to do that. I remember vividly the nerves I was having on the bench in those early tournaments. In fact, my first game was against the Cook Islands, and I scored with my first touch. And all the way through the play, it was fine. Scored the try, and then suddenly, obviously, the whistle's gone, so the clock's off, and suddenly the self-awareness came back.
Okay.
And if you watch the footage, and it's quite old now, I
haven't seen it.
Do a really weird kind of like jog back to halfway, which is just totally not my normal run, because I suddenly felt so self-conscious and aware of myself again. Whereas like between the whistles, when we're actually playing, it was freedom and it allowed me a release. And like, what an amazing thing to have had in my life, have this entire space where I've been able to release and let go of some of these self-conscious thoughts and thoughts of how I might be perceived or how I'm doing. Now, don't get me wrong, there have been moments where it's crept in during the game and I've not been able to be free, and I have probably overthought it. But on the whole, rugby's created a space where I've been able to just let go. I remember actually, uni story, I don't tell this story very often, but I got into a bit of trouble at university and I had training that night. So I'd been in some trouble the night before. The following day...
Fisticuffs?
No, nothing violent, but just some trouble with the local constabulary. And I got out...
Drunk and disorderly.
A little bit,
springs to mind.
Yeah. Got out the next day, and I thought, I've ruined my life. Like, obviously, stewing on it. I felt horrific. I burnt my mouth on the food they gave me. Didn't get enough water. Had too much to drink the night before. So just like horrible day. Thought I'd ruined my life. Had rugby training that night. And I remember being so grateful to just go and run around with the ball.
Yeah.
And obviously I had to sort a few things out of my life after that. But not that I was like spiraling down a bad road. It was just a one-off, instance. But I remember that feeling of like, thank goodness I've got this rugby session, this training, because it just gave me the freedom and the space. And I think that's what sport can do. Different things can do that for different people. For me, it was sport. For me, it's been rugby. And I hadn't probably had thought about it quite as poignantly or as powerfully as we are now, but looking back to those early tournaments, the freedom I experienced, just go and do my thing, was something that I shouldn't take for granted. Very fortunate to have felt that way, because I wouldn't have enjoyed it otherwise, and I wouldn't have certainly have played as well as I did.
Did it ever get heavy for you personally, like in terms of performance? I think you had a bad injury ahead of Rio. Your Olympics debut.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, were there times in the career where it was less easy to just be that guy?
100%, yeah. So I think there was a tipping point. There's a few turning points, perhaps, where I experienced a bit of the stodginess and the inability to enjoy it and to feel free with it. One was in that build-up to Rio. One, I'd been injured, so there was the strife around trying to become my best, like get back to my best again and deliver what I wanted on the field. Very formative experience coming back from injury, really useful actually.
What was that injury?
In hindsight. So I had a fractured dislocation in my ankle. So
that's the footballer injury.
Luckily it was just
Cipriani
fib, but it was like syndesmosis, all the ligaments, etc. Yeah, and it wasn't all the way around the other way, but it wasn't ideal, put it that way. And it was about a year out from the Olympics, so I suddenly had my imagination was playing up. Like, what if you don't get back? What if the biggest opportunity of your whole career is just going to pass you by because you've been injured now? And all those thoughts happen, of course. That was a useful period, but actually more interesting during that year was largely because of my injury. I had a bit of work with a psychologist.
Yeah.
We unpacked why I thought things, why I saw the world a certain way, and what I lent into during that education, I suppose, was that I was putting a lot of weight on myself and the experience that was coming up. And I said that Rio was a highlight of mine. I wouldn't have been able to have enjoyed that journey had I not preempted it and unpacked it ahead of time with the psychologist and understood that actually this is a time to be enjoyed. And it's not just, I'm just going to decide to enjoy it. You have to unpack some stuff and understand a little bit about why your brain works a certain way. And very fortunate to have that education when I did. It came around again for me, 2019, when we were trying to qualify, so as England, but we were trying to qualify for the Tokyo Olympics on behalf of GB. We needed to finish top 4. We were flirting with 4th, 5th. It was a bit of a yo-yo.
Yeah.
And I playing with a bit of injury that season as well, and I just couldn't enjoy it. And I was exactly like you explained earlier. I was gripping on so tight to the steering wheel, trying to control it, trying to steer games into our favour, which in a team sport, you try and do that as an individual, you're always going to come unstuck. I was just pushing the boundaries too much, getting penalised, and it just wasn't working out for me. And I just needed to let go of the weight of it. So those were the times where I look back on and think, that's when I lost the ability to be my best self. And a lot of that is coupled up with stopping enjoying it. And I think it's useful information for anyone, right? As soon as we stop enjoying something, you got to think, well, why is that? And often it's because we're gripping on so tight, I think, and you're trying to control things that are beyond our control.
Yeah.
And it's a process to then get yourself out of that. You can't switch it on and off unless you're super skillful. I think especially if you're really bogged down in it. Sometimes you might need someone else to help you explore it and to get out of it. A lot of it starts with acceptance as well. And you said in your intro that I am a part-time philosopher. I'll indulge these sorts of conversations all day long, but I think it's useful because we all share this human experience and we're all making sense of it. And sometimes things will come along that are familiar. Sometimes things come along that we've got no idea how to get ourselves out of them, and we need other people to do that.
Totally. Mike did actually say something else to me on WhatsApp earlier when I was fishing for stuff that I could drop in and catch you off guard with. And he was saying to your philosopher point, or I think you studied philosophy, didn't you, in English? And that he was saying that he used to sit at the back of the bus on the way to away games just reading philosophy books, which is, I don't know whether he's
probably fabricated that.
Setting you up there.
I didn't read enough philosophy books at uni, that was my problem.
Fine.
Yeah, it was probably a last minute attempt to cram something in.
But in terms of that, like, it just got too heavy or it got too big for you, like what do you mean by that exactly? Is it more like you'd been England's GB Sevens captain for a few years, and then all of a sudden, Sevens is going to be in the Olympics for the first time. The prospect of an Olympics, opening ceremony and everything that goes with that is like just enormous. And so all of a sudden it was like you stop enjoying releasing, being present, and you're just thinking about this end goal. And that's mixed with injury and all the frustrations around that. Is that it? It just became almost like,
I think a little bit.
You got caught up.
Your imagination can obviously serve you really well, looking into the future and imagining how amazing things could be. But there's another side to that coin, right? Your imagination can imagine, what if I don't get it?
Yeah.
And if you don't manage the two sides of that coin and you're not aware of it, then more often than not, our brains are wired to buy into the negative version of that story, right? Because it's trying to protect us from something where we might get hurt. We might feel rubbish if we don't achieve that. So that's probably what was playing out. But I think also by that point, although I hadn't been named captain for that GB squad, I felt a sense of responsibility all through those years, probably from like 2016 all the way through to the end of my career with Sevens. I felt responsibility to deliver on behalf of everyone, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think this was a symptom of having the leadership role, is that you feel like a lot of it is now on me to make sure we have some success. And even using that language, make sure. That's impossible. I can't make sure. And I think it's a responsibility that comes with the territory. It's the nature of having a role like that. You are going to take a lot of that on yourself and put it on your own back. But again, you have to manage it because you can only do a certain amount. You can only play your part during the 14 minutes of a game, and you can only do what you can do around the park. You can support players, you can challenge them in the right way, you can do your best in that sense. But ultimately, they're still going to have to get themselves in the right place and do the right thing on the field. So I think there were moments certainly where I wore the leadership.
Yeah.
Again, I talk about this, wearing it in a heavy way. Yeah. That was my experience. It almost felt like there was a weight on my shoulders at times. I even remember it was after selection. We played in Poland, so the team for Rio had been chosen, but we still had one more warm-up tournament. And it was this crazy scenario whereby we had 2 GB teams entering this European comp. It was a mixture of players who'd been selected and players who hadn't in both teams. The dynamic was off the charts, like sports psychology nightmare or dream, depending on how you look at it.
Like the Hunger Games.
Fascinating scenario. And I remember after the final, the 2 teams met in the final, of course. It was like someone was writing a script. And after the final, I was wearing a lot of the emotions of the people who hadn't made it. And kind of empathically living that out, I think. I remember that one of the staff who was involved with this, one of the team managers, said, like, you look like you got the weight of the world on your shoulders. And I thought, oh, I have. Like, that's what it feels like. And I had no reason to, because it wasn't mine to wear for a start, but I just naturally felt this huge responsibility. And then suddenly, because it was GB in the Olympics, it wasn't just the responsibility of the team, it was the nation, families, other people's families. And so it was a great lesson in how to manage that. And actually, in some ways, the silver medal was great. The biggest victory for me personally during that time was getting myself to a place mentally where I could actually really savor and enjoy that whole experience. Because there were moments where it could have consumed me, it could have been too much, and it could have overwhelmed me. Because, you know, looking back, I was still relatively fragile and mentally unskilled.
Still pretty young.
Well, yeah, relatively speaking, I was 26.
Well, you know, you'd be mid-20s, yeah.
Which seems young now. At the time, I felt like I should have it figured out.
Of course, but that's just life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was there the identity piece, like, you know, year out when you're injured and prospect of the Olympics? Was the ego at risk of getting hurt if Tom Mitchell hadn't got you know, you hadn't made that Olympics and had that experience and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, big time. And there were things that were going on in the background that played into that. Like, I was an ambassador for Adidas at the time, and we did the photo shoot for the kit in April. Yeah. The GB squad hadn't even come together for its first training session at that point, and there I am in the bloody newspaper, parading around in the full strip, being
like
positioned as being
like a mug if you...
well, that's it. And it's suddenly all these things start happening. People ask you questions, people booking tickets to go out to Rio to watch you, booking flights, booking family booked accommodation, hedging their bets that you're going to make it. And you're like, oh, crikey, what if I don't?
Lock in a cheap flight.
Yeah. And all those things do add up. And you suddenly feel like you need to live up to these expectations that you've put on yourself, but also now other people are feeding into as well. So yeah, there's a bit of that for sure. I think I was always the identity bit, and I've experienced that recently with stepping away from the playing side of the game as well. And just checked in with that. I think I've done quite well in terms of distancing myself with that identity, because I was a late bloomer, as I said, so I wasn't positioning myself as a rugby player through teenage years. There was other stuff going on. I've got mates who aren't involved with rugby at all, don't even like
Keep
it.
Grounded.
My wife couldn't care less whether I play rugby, by the way, and we met during middle of the way through my career. And I think all those things have helped me remember very quickly that rugby was only a small part of me, and it's something I've spoken about in my current role now.
Yeah.
I don't really talk about rugby that much. Of course, there's a lot of experiences that have shaped me and that I think are useful to share in terms of learnings, but it is not something that I'm constantly diving into. I enjoy still talking about the game, but I would, if I could, even if someone erased my whole playing history, if I could still talk about the game now, I would.
Totally. Yeah, you can't be harking back the whole time, can you? Because otherwise it's sort of like, it's nostalgic and it's nice, but otherwise you're just, you got to look forward, haven't you? Just a couple of things, wearing the leadership, it feeling heavy. I think that's quite common, isn't it, for sportsmen and women? And sometimes, the best players in the team are sometimes just made captain, and then they can't hack being the best player and the captain. I think we saw that with Joe Root. Joe Root is the number one batsman in the world, but he didn't love being captain, and he's openly sort of admitted to that, and then relinquished it, and Stokes took it on, and then his form just ticked up. Do you have any thoughts on how people do wear captaincy in a light way? Is that just a gift that's given where you just don't overthink it too much? Or I'm sure this is something that you probably have thought about quite a lot, because you were captain for a long time at England and GB and stuff.
I think some people are blessed with the ability to not think about things too much, and sometimes those people make good leaders because they just do, and it just works out for them. I think most people have to engage with this thought, and there's a couple of things. There's a few things probably, but one of them is it's probably an inevitable part of the territory. To some degree, you have to think, right, there is a bit of responsibility on me here to do certain things, either in a pragmatic way, right, I've got to make some calls on behalf of other people. Naturally, that's going to come with a bit of pressure because there are consequences that will affect other people, not just yourself. I think one of the key things in terms of managing the weight of it is learning a way of leading that is suitable for you as an individual. So understanding who am I as a person and what do I think is really important in life. So values, I guess, would be that. And then understanding how those can play out in a practical setting for you and the team you work with. One of the big traps I nearly fell into was trying to emulate other leaders and try and do what other people did because I thought that was the right thing to do. You've got to start the other way around. So you've got to think, well, who am I? What are my strengths? And how can those play out? Like, why have I been asked, or why have I found myself in this leadership role? There must be reasons. If you can identify those and then you play them out and you dial them up. And for me, that was stuff like compassion, empathy, and self-awareness and understanding other people. I didn't have to be super assertive and really domineering and strike the fear into people, which is what I thought a good rugby captain was, to be honest.
That's a stereotype.
Yeah, and I had to kind of let go of that stereotype.
Yeah.
And then it becomes free. Like some of the best moments of leadership were almost autonomous, but they were because I was allowing my best self to come out rather than necessarily thinking my way through it. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some strategic stuff around leadership, of course, and you work on that, but I think the best leaders have spent time thinking about these things, like who am I as my best self and how can I share that with other people and allow that to come through. The process of doing that sounds straightforward when you say it like this. Often it's messy, it's getting it wrong a whole load of times, and it's being willing to be wrong with it. I found it a struggle to be wrong in the beginning because I didn't mind making mistakes on the rugby field. I mean, I did. I was filthy with myself if I made a mistake, but I would still try stuff.
Yeah.
Leadership, I was reluctant to try stuff because their consequences affected other people in a direct way, and I was reluctant to do that. But I had to learn a way of leaning in and going after it because otherwise you just don't improve. Same with anything.
Totally. It's really interesting. So you did some work on yourself, worked out, what the best version of Tom Mitchell looks like, and then just carried yourself as that person, your authentic self, and trusted that it was all going to work out.
Yeah, try to. And it sounds like the perfect ingredients now, but it's much foggier and messier than that going through it. I think there's a couple of things you can help with it, which is one, we sort of touched on it a bit, but managing yourself. So whatever it is that you need to do to manage yourself, and I have to say now in life with kids and demands on time, it's harder to manage myself than it was when it was just me to look after. And I was quite selfish with life, and I did spend a lot of time on my own routines and regimes and things. But that certainly helped because it allowed me to top up my cup. It's a phrase that people like to use, and I think it's a useful one, and allow me to pour out for other people as a result.
Interesting. Rusty, Russell Earnshaw, how did you actually know him originally? Because you mentioned that he nudged you to contact Ben when you were still at Oxford. Rusty's been on the pod.
Yeah, so it was through
some nice things about you as well, by the way.
Yeah, well, that was nice to hear. And I'm lucky, I still do some stuff with Rusty as well, still do some coaching. Very grateful for him, for his wisdom over the years, not just when I was playing, but since I've stopped playing, he's been really, really helpful. One of these guys that is just doesn't hesitate to help other people. It's a really amazing trait. And he's very skillful at doing it as well, I should say.
Yeah, he's a bright guy. Yeah, he said on the pod that you're the best leader he's worked with. And I imagine he's worked with some serious leaders. And I wanted him to dive into what he meant by that. And he sent me a voice note and he said, high levels of self-awareness, high levels of empathy, understands how to individualize stuff for people only because he works hard on it. It's not by chance. Really interesting.
That last one's really interesting, the individualizing.
I was about to ask what he meant by that. Like, what does that mean to you? Because that's really skillful if you can do that.
So I think that's a skill I lacked a lot of the time during my playing days. I think I was just too naive to really understand how that played out, and too insecure, actually. Because if someone was very different from me, my immediate reaction was, I'll leave them to do what they want.
Yeah.
And I'll steer clear. because I don't understand. Particularly if they exhibited behaviours that were quite boisterous or like macho or alpha male, I think I would probably just let them crack on, whether I thought it was the right thing or not. So I think that's something I've learned in more recent years, particularly I've done more coaching actually.
Okay.
Understand, well, actually, what does this person need from me? Because you first take on a leadership role, often you think about the team as a whole. I'm having some really good conversation with Simon Amor, actually, another good coach of mine.
Yeah.
And we used to unpack decisions that we were making based on, okay, well, how will this impact this individual, this individual, this individual? And by the end of that conversation, you've got an answer of, well, how does this impact the team?
Totally.
Rather than, how does this impact the team? Well, I'm not really sure, but we'll have a punt. right? And obviously, it's difficult to do that if you're a leader of an organisation with thousands of employees or whatever.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's the best way to go about it. You have to kind of try and think, how is this going to impact individual people? Because we get caught up thinking of entities as being abstract things, but they're not. Everything we do in life involves other people, other human beings who will respond in their own human way.
Do you think it's easier to do that as a coach rather than as a peer? Because it's something that I think about quite a lot at the moment. Like, I find it really hard to put myself in somebody else's shoes, like if they're different to me. I think about it with my business partner at Luca, right? We had two fundamentally very different people in all aspects of life, and I think that's why it works. But also, it makes it somewhat difficult at times because I just see things very differently to him, and he needs things that I don't need. You know, he needs a tap on the back, whereas I find it a bit cringe if somebody congratulates me or whatever. But he finds it motivating, and I just think like maybe when you're a peer, you sort of just expect them to operate like you, or at least I do, which I think is a fundamental flaw in me, and it's something that I'm working hard on. But I'm just wondering, did it become easier when you stepped into like that coaching role where you're no longer relying on those teammates for mutual success? Does that mean, does this mean anything to you?
Yeah, it's very fascinating. I think there were one reason it definitely dialed up for me when I went into the coaching was because I was learning the craft of coaching a bit more, and individualizing was a huge part of that, and people like Rusty really helped with that education. So I think it was a bit of an educational piece. But also I think when you're coaching, you're not reliant on the people you're coaching to be your mates as well.
Yeah, totally.
And I do think there's a fear of being rejected often, isn't there? And that can make us play in a range of different ways. For me, it probably made me play small a little bit and not take the risk and not challenge people sometimes for fear of being rejected, I suppose. And when you're part of a team, because even if you're the captain, you are still part of that team, and you want to feel part of that team. You're very aware of trying to maintain the bonds between people, and it's a sweet spot of finding. In fact, it's more the depth of relationship I think you can forge if you can develop a trust with people, which means that they're never just going to disregard you entirely if you challenge them. Then you're in a good place. It takes time, takes investment, and I think that coming back to your scenario, you now have a degree of understanding. Right? And how did you come about that? We come about that through having conversations, through actually trying to dig below the surface a bit. Both of you probably in moments being a little bit vulnerable, sharing some stuff you wouldn't do on your first meeting, but you do by the time you've had a lot of conversations. And the quicker you can peel back some of those layers in a team context, the better. Obviously, coming up through rugby with like 20-something-year-old blokes, those layers don't get peeled back all that quickly sometimes. And I guess if there was advice, I would try and, for coaches, leaders, anyone, is try and create scenarios and an environment whereby people feel empowered and free to have some of those conversations. It's not an easy thing to do, especially in the day-to-day with some of the companies I work with now. They're not rocking up to the office every day looking for these conversations. No. They might be reserved for family and friends at home. Of course, right at the top of the pyramid, you might only be having those conversations with your loved ones. But can we get beyond, how's your weekend? How you doing? Oh, it's a bit hot today, isn't it? Oh, how's the tube ride in?
Yeah, just the mundane chit-chat.
Absolutely.
No, totally.
And it opens up a whole world of possibilities as a leader if you can get beyond that.
I completely agree with that. I think Vass, my business partner, when we met on like this program for people that wanted to start a business but didn't have a co-founder, so this VC fund curates a group of 70 odd people and hope that co-founding teams form, and then they invest in some. Long story short, that's how we met. And then when we sort of got on from day one, despite the fact that we're very different, or that maybe in spite of that fact, or because of that, sorry. And when we were like seriously talking about potentially working together, we sort of had a get to know you conversation, and they helped facilitate that through various questions. And he was like, before we even do this, there's one thing you need to know about me. So I have a history of mental health problems. Like I had severe depression in my early 20s, like, you know, suicidal thoughts and everything. It was on antidepressants for 3 years. And like bang, straight off the bat, was willing to be as vulnerable about the most vulnerable thing, you know, in his life.
How did you
he's ever
respond to that? Because that's also quite a lot for you, straight at the bat. There is a sweet spot in this whereby you're finding the right level for both of you, right? And that must be quite tough.
Massively appreciative and like, grateful for that, because then like anything's on the table. So then stuff that's happened like to me in the last 3 years since we've been working together, I don't hesitate to share any of it with him. So like breakups or whatever, he's the first person to know, and we sit down and have because we work remotely most of the time because he's Greek and spends most of his time in Greece, albeit we do go back and forth. He helps counsel me through things, nice. which works well, even though we're still like fundamentally very different people, and I'm still working out like what that looks like on a day-to-day basis in terms of pushing each other and all the rest of it. But the vulnerability, if you can be vulnerable with people, you just develop this depth of relationship that means you're willing to do anything for those people. And I think back to our, like, we have a shared experience from Oxford, right? That we're both involved in the rugby club and involved in varsity campaigns, and albeit a number of years apart. And I just remember this really powerful evening leading up to like my second varsity. There was like a campfire. Like this varsity was moved from the usual date in December. It's now March, but anyway, it was moved to July because it was a COVID year. And we had this like campfire a week before. We had a few beers, and it was just a bit of a kumbaya. And we just went around a circle and just opened up about stuff. And like boys were talking about being on antidepressants and being, having high levels of anxiety, and like no one else around sort of that campfire knew about that. And it's like, when people are willing to share stuff like that, you just feel so much closer to them, and other lads talking about siblings dying or whatever. And it's like, fuck, if you can have a bond like that, you can run through brick walls, I think.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I think if you can, especially blokes, not to generalise.
Totally.
I think that, culturally there is more of a challenge there. And I think if you can get to that levels of vulnerability, it's so powerful. I think some people might be listening thinking, well, I'm never going to get there with people I work with, for example. And that's actually okay. We don't have to think of vulnerability as being your deepest, darkest thoughts and secrets.
No, totally.
It can just be volunteering yourself slightly outside the norm, or slightly outside the comfort zone, in order to try and connect better with someone else. And also, the other thing I want to be clear on is, this sounds like, it can easily sound like, this is just a way of living happily and feeling good about ourselves. That's true, but there's also a performance edge to this. So if we're talking about bringing it back to the business or any team, high-performing teams, if you can have greater levels of conversation and actually using a bit of vulnerability, drive the conversation up to some slightly more powerful things, you're going to develop more trust. More trust in the organisation is going to yield better results every single time, because you're going to be more efficient, more effective at working with one another. You're going to collaborate better. So I think often this vulnerability and the deep conversations can be people reject it out being a bit fluffy, but there's like a hard-edged performance side to this as well.
100%. It doesn't have to be about the really heavy, deep stuff. Like, as you say, that is one sort of like, topic area or whatever. But another is just being vulnerable enough to object to consensus in a meeting room, knowing that you're putting yourself on the line and that you might get rejected by that group of people because they might shout you down or decide to move in another direction. But equally, you might have that might be the breakthrough that the company needs, or whatever group of people it is. And yet, if you're biting your tongue because you're scared of being rejected, that's the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and I think that's how it plays out in like a more traditional working environment. I could talk about this stuff all day. I love it.
I know. I told you.
What is the time? 5:30. No, it's all right. We got some other stuff to get through. Right. I want to talk about. You sent me your bio, which I found so useful ahead of this, just for prepping and getting to know you better. a bit of a recurring theme in that is that you've just felt the need to achieve because of your like fortunate start to life, like good education, good school, good university, good home life. I don't know you well enough to know your parents and all that kind of stuff, but the need to be best in show has been wearing at times for you, like mentally.
I
do you want to
think
delve into
something I
that
had
at
to
all?
make sense of, and still do to a degree. Like we all grow up with our life experiences. Some of it nature, some of it nurture, and some of it serves us, and some of it doesn't. Some does both. And for me, I think I identified relatively early on, that I was lucky with my circumstances, with my lot in life, and wanted to make the most of that. One of my sort of mantras, I guess, it was quite weird as a teenager. I had a mantra, I don't know, but
No, it's cool.
It was kind of making the most of opportunities. It was pretty straightforward. I just wanted to make the most of all the opportunities that came along. Annoyingly for my parents, this meant I signed up to like every after-school club that there was. And I didn't realise how lucky I was that they were willing to let me do all that and pay for it and things like that, But the other side to that, making the most of the opportunities, is like, I better make the most of the opportunities. So depending on how you frame it in your mind,
Totally.
it comes with weight. And again, one of the things I noticed throughout my rugby career was part of the reason I succeeded was because I wanted to be the best, i.e. I wanted sort of the progression of making the most of the opportunities was be the best at this.
Yeah.
And that is really useful at making you work really hard and commit to things. But it can also be quite consuming if it goes unchecked. So making sure that you
can't always be the best at whatever you're doing.
Absolutely,
right?
And making sure that you only apply that mindset to things you really want to do, rather than things that have no meaning or consequence, because then you just become anxious about stuff. So that was something I just had to learn to manage, and yeah, still do. I think now, less so. I think it's funny going into a professional sport environment. It certainly fuels that mindset because it's all about being the best and being the best in show and top of the pile and top of the table. So it was a risky environment in some ways for someone who already had that in a quite strong way, but it's not unheard of. A lot of high performing people have that kind of mindset, and that's why they are where they are. I think the people that struggle to enjoy the success as well, actually, is when they don't appreciate, or they don't take a moment to let go of that drive to be the best and actually enjoy the journey as well. And I think if you can have both of those, in fact, someone we work with quite a lot who's a psychological magician said today about having two voices in his head, and he said that one voice is the critical voice and one voice is the sort of confident voice. And actually you need to have both, almost in equal measure, to not only enjoy yourself but progress, because if you've only got the critical voice,
you're not going to enjoy yourself.
You'd never even do the thing. You'd never even leave the house.
I see, because you're not worthy.
But if you've only got the confident voice, you never get better because you wouldn't challenge yourself and see where you can improve. So I thought that was quite a nice way of framing it.
Yeah, keeping them balanced is probably quite important.
And just noticing what your natural bias is. I mean, even people listening now might think, well, it's a simplistic dynamic, right? To frame what is a very complicated brain we all have. But notice, where would you be on that scale? Would you be towards the end of highly driven, wanting to succeed, needing to do well, or are you down the other end, and whereby you don't feel the drive and need to succeed, and that could be in a healthy way where you just feel very satisfied in who you are as a person, or it could be that you're just confident that you can do it and you don't push yourself. I mean, it's a complicated dynamic to try and put into simple terms, but I think it's a nice way of just nudging some self-awareness on it anyway.
How do you reflect on your career now, 2 or 3 years out?
Amazing. I mean, there are things you always look back and think, oh, could we have won a bit more? Or, would I have liked to have... One thing we were speaking about briefly before we recorded was about playing 15-a-side. So obviously had a career almost exclusively in sevens, played one season in Major League Rugby at the end of my career. There was a little bit of a question mark.
LA. What was the franchise called?
The Giltinis. Yes, it is no more. It went under. There's a different LA franchise now. Great adventure.
That was with Gitto, right?
Yeah, amazing group of players out there. It was really cool. Good group of lads, good group of people. But there was a bit of a question, like, what would have happened if I'd tried to go down the 15s route. Very nearly did after Rio. Thought I was at a point of pivot.
Did you?
Yeah.
Opportunity there.
Looked at going and joining Bristol, actually, was the club we're talking to, and thought, is that a good move? In the end, never went because was loving sevens too much. But it still left the question of, like, I wonder what if. And I think in this country in particular, because there's more status, kudos, and earning potential with 15, so you're always going to ask that question. But I'm also and you can't do it all, right? Like, I would have loved to have gone and played in France as well. But then would I have forgone any of my sevens years? Well, no, I wouldn't. So I'm always a believer that, like, regret is largely a waste of time. That doesn't mean you can't learn from previous ways, but to get really philosophical about it, and I've read this or heard this somewhere, but whatever happened for you at that time was the perfect thing to happen for you at that time, because it was the only thing that happened for you at that time.
Yeah.
So if we want to believe that we live, if we want to believe that we live in a perfect existence, which we probably should because it's our only existence, then we might as well reflect on everything happening for us as being the right thing.
Yeah, I don't.
Not easy to channel.
Not easy to channel. I don't think there's any point in having regrets either, unless there's like a really clear decision from a moment in time where you went against your intuition and what felt right for whatever reason, because there were external pressures.
Absolutely.
But I think.
But maybe that was the right thing for you to get it wrong.
For sure, at the end of that quote, right, for sure.
Yeah.
But
I don't think that's just a comforting thought. I think I almost think that is just the way things are. Now, I struggle to channel this a lot because at the moment I'm thinking about, going through career transition still and life transition with kids and stuff, and understanding my place and what the right thing to do is. Constantly asking questions like, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Both in parenting, career, etc. And it's hard to just sit with that thought of, I'll just be at ease with what's going on because it's the right thing for me. Because it does feel like there's that place which you want to have ownership over your decisions, and that's absolutely the right thing to do because you can control to a degree where you go, but it's almost looking backwards is where you can't impact anything.
Totally.
So that's where I go with it.
No.
I feel like
it gets quite philosophical.
Really down the rabbit
because all
hole
you
here.
ever have is like this moment now. And the past is just this moment now, obviously, and the future is this moment now, but yet to come, right? Which is why I think you should never stress too much about the future, because if you're just in the here and now, and you take care of it, then of course tomorrow will take care of itself, and so will next year and the next decade.
But if we ground this in sports psychology, it feels like it's a little less out in the universe. But if you make a mistake in a game, you can't do anything about the mistake.
No.
You also don't know what's going to happen next, so you can't preempt it. So the only place you can be is right there in the moment. And when you frame it like that, it feels a bit more grounded. My mate actually keeps me grounded. He lives in Australia. We have quite philosophical voice notes. Like, honestly, the longest voice notes ever. It's a nightmare. But
I play that game with a guy that used to work here, actually. He's an Italian guy. It sends me like 18-minute voice notes.
It's nice, isn't it? You just have to make time for it.
Yeah.
One of his favourite phrases is get out the time machine. If you're spending too much time in the past or too much time in the future,
totally.
It's a waste of energy. Largely, it's a waste of time. It doesn't mean you never think about future decisions. Of course you do, strategically. But your time and energy can't live there. It's got to live in the here and now to a large degree, because that's where you're making the decision.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. With you.
I feel exhausted after that.
It's getting tiring, this. Right, no, it's not. It's been great.
Maybe it's because we're in a hot room. It's like gone to our brains.
Quite possibly. So, okay, you talked about your transition. You're doing lots of different things. Mm-hmm. You explored a few different things when you were playing. Like, you're doing some stuff with Adidas, presumably because you were sponsored or the team was sponsored or whatever, and you did some charity work with Umrio.
Yeah.
UK Doc.
Yeah.
You did. Did you do any commentary, broadcast stuff?
Not loads.
You do that now,
playing,
right?
But I've done a bit since I stopped. I did get a couple of opportunities while I was still playing. Got a taste for it. Again, amazing how you look back and you think, I had a conversation with the exec producer at World Rugby around the pool a couple of years ago in Dubai while I was there working that event, and he said, come and have a look in the truck, if you're interested.
Yeah.
Next minute I'm getting an invitation to do commentary for the Hong Kong Sevens. That was the first Sevens tournament I did on the series. Loved it, and found something that I really wanted to work on as well. Like I was like, I want to learn the skill here. I want to understand how the broadcast comes together.
That's cool.
I want to understand how the camera ops are capturing those shots. I want to understand how the director chooses which shots and how I can complement that with what I'm saying. How to do clean in, clean outs, and how to say things that are going to not only sound good on the wide broadcast, but also be clipped up for highlights and socials and things like that. And I found like the interest kind of surprised me. I was like, oh wow, I didn't think I was going to love this as much. And of course there was a bit of a safety net because I knew the game inside out. So
you could talk about rugby, it's fine. And then you're just honing a skill.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was brilliant, and I've loved doing it and hope to continue to do more. So that's been a great way of staying in touch with the game. I also have done a fair bit of coaching, which again, I did some during my playing days. I used to go and coach at schools every so often. And looking back, I was terrible, like compared to what I know now. But you only know what you know. And, I was giving something, hopefully an exciting and memorable experience to the kids either way back then. But again, I enjoyed the passion of learning how to be a better coach. And then most recently, so started this year working for Unthink, the company I work for now, and I channel that kind of passion for helping people be their best selves and perform their best, but with businesses, so with adults in various different businesses. And it's fascinating because there aren't loads of differences actually working with kids and working with adults.
Really?
I mean, sometimes adults listen slightly better. Okay. But it's the same concepts, a lot of what we're discussing now around how do you get the best out of yourself and understanding that mindset of ownership and how I can find what I can control in my sphere and do something about it. A lot of stuff around leadership and how people can understand people in their teams and get the best out of them whilst also working on themselves amongst all the noise and busyness that people deal with in their lives and their day-to-day jobs. So yeah, it's been fascinating. Again, it's been a journey of learning, of being outside my comfort zone a little bit with some of it, of reassessing or being at peace with having a new label, I guess, and a new stream to my life. So yeah, it's fascinating.
And Unthink looks really cool because they're doing things slightly differently, right? It's a bit more creative than your typical sort of leadership consultancy.
Absolutely, and it's not. What I've loved about what attracted me to the company, which we're living out now, is the methodology. Really, like people are only going to embed what you do and what you say if they're having an experience that's attached to it. Totally. Because you have to make it memorable for people, and that's what we try and do with the way we design sessions. The last thing we are is boring. We try and connect the dots for people in a way that's going to be memorable, that's going to lead to some genuine change for them, and not just short-term, but long-term change for them, for their teams, for the organisations. And it's a great challenge to have, to try and understand these people who are all very different. You never got the same group you're working with within all these different companies. So we try and be creative and try and push the boundaries. It's actually made me reflect on my career in a different way, funny enough, because at Unthink, I think we are quite industry defining in what we're doing and pushing the boundaries. And I look back at my rugby and I think, could I have pushed the boundaries more? Like you use cricket as an example, baseball.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have had our own version of baseball in sevens. I don't know what it would have looked like, but I never really looked at it. I was probably never quite willing to, or even really had the thought of like, how can I change the game? It was only when I started to get towards the twilight years of my playing career where I thought, the best sports people change the game. And I would have liked to have been one of those people, I suppose. Maybe that was never within me, but I probably didn't dedicate enough thought to that side of things.
Has anyone done that in sevens? You know how football, people look at like Guardiola as like, all of a sudden it's not route one, it's tiki-taka.
Has anyone done that in sevens? It's a fascinating question. I guess someone who popped into my mind was someone like Perry Baker. And for those who don't follow sevens, he was someone who was a crossover athlete, came from
he's a serious
track
athlete.
and American football.
Yeah.
I suppose he changed the game in terms of being able to bring his skill set and add to the game in a few different ways. Who else changed the game? Interesting. Maybe it's not had its moment
But in
yet.
terms of style of play,
I'm not.
Is there, off the top of your head, another way to play the game? Is everyone playing the same version?
I mean, there are different styles.
Broadly speaking, the structure that people adopt, right?
South Africa, we don't want to go too far down the rugby north route here, but I will indulge it for a moment. I mean, South Africa in some ways did, where they had a period of success, and it wasn't a change in the game that I particularly appreciated. I didn't like watching it or playing against it for that matter, but it flipped the game on its head in terms of they made it a defensive game.
Super physical.
Super physical, and it was all about their defence. They used to kick you the ball and say, go on, like, we'll just defend, we'll turn the ball over, and then we'll go and score.
Yeah.
And that was what they prided themselves on. And Sevens was always the attacking game. It was always about the attack. And then suddenly they came along, and it worked for them, and it served them really well. And they had a lot of success out of it. So I suppose that is kind of an example. But, you know, sports have their moments, and maybe Sevens is yet to have its moment, although obviously at the top level, who knows what's happening.
Contracts have gone, right?
So GB have gone to a part-time program. Not really sure what that looks like at this stage. It's devastating because obviously, you know, selfishly, or my own feelings on it, you want to leave the sport in a better place. Difficult to say that that's the case right now.
Yeah, but that's not your fault.
It's not. You know, I've tried to do some stuff behind the scenes over the years, but it's frustrating for the players that have been left without an opportunity to go to LA 2028, the next Olympics, and really have a roadmap to it. I mean, we had a small sniff of this during COVID because our program got shut down during COVID, and we didn't know what we were going to do around Tokyo, but the dream was still there.
Yeah.
Same with the players now. The dream's still there. They want to give it their heart and soul, and yet they haven't got the infrastructure to do it. And it's incredibly frustrating. I mean, the game as a whole, at the top level, has probably been mismanaged, and they are struggling. Unions are struggling to make sense of it. I think it's a time of change for the sport. I think there'll be some new iterations of competitions that will be valuable for the game, and that could be where the future lies. That in conjunction with some international tournaments that then lead into the Olympics. It's been such a success. Every single Olympic Games has been a massive success. Paris last year was brilliant.
The Sevens, you mean?
The Sevens was amazing. And it has constantly delivered as a sport, the Olympic Games, and yet it hasn't been found its sustainable life outside of that at the moment. But we hold out hope.
Across all the nations. This isn't just an RFU England Sevens.
No, it's trouble across the sport really at the moment, in terms of the international picture.
Interesting. Perhaps time for a shake-up. Cool. This has been awesome. I've loved having you on. Like, I could talk sort of philosophy and spirituality all day long.
I know.
Particularly when you combine it with leadership, high performance stuff. I think that's where it gets super interesting because there's always going to be that internal fight between release, let go, and trying to do like hard things. And you know there always has to be a bit of both, and like those two voices in your head. So thank you for coming in. You know, we've known each other for a few years, and you actually, you know, you helped us out as an advisor for like I think 14 months or so when we first got going. And
it feels like ages ago now, by the way.
It feels like
you will have gone through so much change.
I mean, it was a different company then, but it feels like a complete lifetime ago. But it's been really cool to.
I helped kill off that bit of the company.
No. You were trying to help make introductions for something that didn't need to exist. So that wasn't on you at all. But I really do appreciate it. And I think one final question for you. I mean, there's a wrap-up piece that I really like from the bottom of your bio, and I don't know whether this is on your CV or whatever that you applied to, you know, when you thought about Unthink and stuff, but it just says, Tom tries to live based on values of curiosity, love, and connection. That's pretty cool. That resonated. So then the one final thing I want to ask you is, what's one piece of advice you'd give to the 23-year-old version of Tom Mitchell right now? i.e., what's going to resonate with a young kid who's got it all ahead of them based on what you've been through in your playing days since?
I guess it's a culmination of some of the things we've talked about, actually. And maybe this advice would change tomorrow if you asked me the same question.
That's perfectly fine.
But I think it would be two things. One, carry things lightly. Talked a lot about getting into trouble when things get too heavy. So can you take the heat out of some situations and recognise that when things start to feel heavy, you can just let it go a little bit. And the other thing would be not being afraid to break the mould, find the new normal, do things differently, not necessarily feel the need to do things the same way they've always been done.
Yeah, amazing. Very cool. Carry things lightly. There's an amazing Huxley quote about that. which I've actually got in my iPhone notes, which I go back to whenever I start taking myself a bit too seriously or start worrying about things. I just go back to that because I think I'm not going to read it out because this is being philosophical. So if anybody wants to find it,
WhatsApp it to me on my tube home. Right?
Live Lightly, Aldous Huxley. Amazing. Thank you, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate. It's been great.
Perfect.
That was the Luca Health Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, subscribe for more content like this. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube.